I'd say we do creative math at UGC Ninja. The purchase rate was increased by 90%. Don't invest into something polished, pretty cool. Don't forget about the structure.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Apptica Talks, the podcast where we dive into the latest and greatest insights of the mobile industry with experts leading the way. I'm Polina, head of marketing at Apptica, and today I'm excited to have in our virtual studio Ross Puriasev, Chief Marketing Officer at UGC Ninja. Hey Ross, thanks for joining us today. How's it going?
It's going great actually. Thanks for hosting me today. I'm pretty excited, and let's nail this.
Yeah, let's kick off. And before starting, today our topic will be UGC-like ads, creatives, and also the expertise and experience of UGC Ninja. But before kicking off, I'd like you to share your career path experience, career path growth details. How did you get into the industry?
That's a great question, actually. Trying to recall my background, I'd say that I've always been connected to some creative stuff, like even when I was a student, like doing different creative projects, organizing like small concerts, events, etc., like being an MC for a while, etc. And when I graduated, I went for a while to Asia. I was living there for a while, and I was working on the content for like English centers, doing some interview stuff, education materials, etc. That was about like video filming, etc. And at different stages, I was producing like video clips, like ad tech courses, etc. And at some point, when I joined the team, originally, actually, when I joined the team, we weren't UGC Ninja at that moment. Previously, we had a mobile app, and that was quite natural that I started working on the documents part first, then got involved more and more in the content part of the app. And at some point, when we had to pivot, when we had to create UGC Ninja, I went through the things that I knew pretty well, like being a creative producer, script writer, even a little bit editor, etc. So I went through all the stages of production to become a creative director for a while, for about like a year. And then I left this position to become a CMO now. And here we are.
Great. It seems like you've been collecting all of the skills during your long and maybe even bumpy way. So now you're here, and we are very happy to have you in UGC Ninja. Also, I'd like to ask, what exactly are you working on at UGC Ninja, and what services does UGC Ninja provide on daily basis, like to your customers?
Speaking of what we do at UGC Ninja, and trying to keep it short, I'd say that the main thing that we do and focus on is we create UGC-like ads for UA teams. We help to scale, we help to start, we help to solve different challenges that UA teams and creative teams face. That's the point. And speaking of me, at UGC Ninja, I'm really involved into the product part. So like developing new options, following the market's request to make sure that we're still top notch and we are able to cover the needs and the demand we see from the market. Of course, it's about like for managing the key clients. Mentioning some of them, I'd say they're like TikTok, Dream Games, for example. Many of different big companies. Making sure that our mutual collaboration is going to be for good for both teams. That's the point. And of course, it's about being representative. This is exactly the thing I'm doing right now here. And of course, it's also about finding new ways to promote and to scale the services that we provide our clients with.
Great. So there is plenty of different duties and responsibilities,
Sure.
I'll yeah. I also want to mention that UGC like ads and user-generated content in general is something like a phenomena that sounds very powerful to me, and it always like seems to deliver very high results. And I want to ask you, what competitive advantage does this ad format have comparing to other maybe traditional formats of advertising?
Sure. The very first thing that actually makes UGC different from like more classic commercial types of advertising is that it's personal. I mean, like the definition that we have and we use in our team is about that a good UGC looks like a friend of yours literally recording you a short video message about, hey mate, I found a great app or a great game or a great product, so you definitely need to check this out because like I bought it yesterday and this is just amazing. So this kind of feeling that UGC brings to the audience. Because speaking of like more classic ways of advertising and ad content, it's about like, hey, we're a great brand with like, don't know, over 20 years of history, our products are amazing, etc. And you tend to trust it less because you feel that thing that of course company isn't going to say that, hey, we're not so good as we announce, as we claim to be, right? But when you see someone absolutely real, like a person that you might, don't know, meet in public transport, for example, don't know, and your commute way to work in the morning, it's more trustworthy. That's the first thing. The second thing is about that we still can do all the ad stuff, classic ad stuff, like segment the audience, try to target different groups, cohorts, you know, like followers, etc. in a more natural way. So for example, you know, like in the classic commercial, it would be that, hey, if we'd love to catch younger audience, it's going to be about mentioning these specific USPs. That with UGC, it's going to be about like having a younger talent. Speaking the same language as the rest of them do, right? Or like, you know, mimicking and copying the an organic trend from TikTok, for example, etc. And I really love the way that when we try to promote and present a product through UGC, it's going to be about like not about how good it is in general, in common. It's going to be about how good it is for me, and it could be for you, right? So it's not about like, hey, this product is cheaper than the competitors, or it has an amazing, don't know, like tracking algorithm. It's going to be about, hey, since I started using this app, I lost, don't know, like 2 pounds, or I started maintaining my, don't know, meal schedule, etc., etc., etc.
It's a very interesting combination of this data-driven approach and this personalization and trustworthiness in your organic and native user-generated content. And I also want to ask, what is the difference of user-generated like ads in mobile apps and in other industries? As far as I'm concerned, you mostly work with mobile apps, but maybe you have experience in other realms as well?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we work across different verticals. I'd say that mobile apps of all types is our type 2 focus. The type 1 is gaming. That was classically because just the main reason for that is the amount of assets that gaming companies use and test on a monthly basis. But speaking of some peculiarities that are relevant to mobile apps, ads, I'd say let's compare it with ecom, for example, right? So with mobile apps, the product itself rarely is rarely a hero. It's more about the person, right? So you know, like, hey, I'm Maggie, I'm 35, I'm living in the US, I'm a housewife, and I've got this app for intermittent fasting that helps me to keep fit, right? It's going to be about the person, a personal story about how the product is implemented into this real life real situation. With ecom, for example, product is quite often a main character of an ad, right? So look at this jacket. This is amazing, right? So, and we just see the jacket. We have a voice. We have someone showing this jacket, but the product itself is the main character. It reminds me of the one of the best performing ecom ads from Amazon about like 2 years ago. That was about a waterproof jacket. And the hook was that literally a girl was just pouring a glass of water on the jacket, showing how waterproof it is. And that's all. No one cares what happens next, because people already see the main feature, the main thing, they see how it works, and that's all. Right? With the app, it works a little bit differently. So it's going to be about like explaining, delivering the message about like how I can use it in my real life and how it works for me or how it could work for you, etc.
So it seems like mobile apps are more closely connected to the users than other even digital platforms, and more native explanation and showcasing of a product is needed in terms of mobile apps marketing. It's a very surprising and interesting point. And also I want to step into this realm of categorization and classification. Actually, I saw a lot of different UGC-like ads in our ad intelligence creative gallery, but for me, it's connected to talking heads and maybe some let's plays, but other types of UGC-like ads, I'm not very well concerned with them. Could you please share if there is some classification and types of this UGC-like ads?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure there is an official categorization of it, but in our team, what we do, and this is my personal favorite approach, is like to split them into types based on their I'd say genre and the production flow. So of course, one of them you already mentioned is going to be talking heads, right? So one talent, one location, like a personal story. So we test a talent and a speech. That's the first thing. It could be like a skit. It's going to be like more than 2 and more talents interacting, acting out a situation, or like just like showing something that happened in real life. It could be like street talks, street interviews. I bet you've seen lots of them, right? So it's a different type because here we've got a dialogue with a random person in the street, etc. And we also at UGC Ninja, we define hooks, which is going to be a totally different approach to the structure of an ad. So what we do, we just film and create first 5 to 7 seconds of a video and test it with the same body. So the main message, the body plus CTA is going to be the same, but the hook is going to be different. So we work on hook rate and like CDR to find the best combo. And for the hooks, it might be absolutely different. So as talking heads might be split into like review, let's plays, testimonials, personal stories, even like podcasting, it's still a talking head, right? Having a person with a mic, like telling something, etc. So with the hooks, it might be different as well. It might be about like saying a phrase, using a TikTok comment plate. It could be just like mentioning the problem, answering the message, stating an issue, or like doing something. So it might be like a catchy action, or it might be a trend, it might be a trendy sound, etc., etc., etc. So, but the main types, I'd say, for me at least, like this, and I'd also add AI to it.
Can we distinguish them in terms of audiences and verticals? Like, for example, maybe for fintech apps, talking heads work best, or maybe there are some other options and combinations of these verticals, audiences, and types of UGC-like ads.
Yeah, sure. So from my experience, it's a process, I'd say. So it's not static at all. A quick example, fintech, right? Pretty classic, picky, paying lots of attention to all the like legal part, etc. And there we could see that skits were working for it, don't know, like about 18 months ago, and they were made by different companies and it brought results. But after that, for a long time, for a year, just talking heads were working mostly. If you open like any platform and you start looking for fintech ads, it's going to be like talking heads, talking heads, talking heads, talking heads. And it worked actually. But then straight interviews came and like literally turned it upside down because straight interviews are working perfectly for fintech. Like having someone in the street asking a random person or asking a stranger, hey, what do you do for a living? Have you heard of this trading platform, etc.? It's going to work well, right? But so, and now we have like two main types, talking heads plus straight interviews. But it's going to change the next year. I bet there will be a new format. And 2024 was a renaissance of talking heads, actually, because with those podcast formats, etc. That speaking of a direct correlation between a vertical and the type of UGC, there are some, but they tend to change.
Now I understand why when I'm thinking about UGC-like ads, I always thinking about these talking heads because they are like predominant part at the market. So it's quite reasonable that I'm also mentioning this format. And I'd like to ask you whether there are some general rules or maybe even secrets of making great performing creatives, UGC-like ads. So maybe you have some best practices and expertise of UGC Ninja that you could share with us.
There is no secret sauce, I'm going to be honest. The secret sauce is data that you have. And for us, for example, it's one of the most important things because I'd say we do creative math at UGC Ninja. We got a really huge database of all our previous projects, all the tests that we had with our partners, and it helps us a lot. Along with the daily monitoring, the platforms, verticals, like finding the best practices. So it's about data. Given some piece of advice about how to approach like UGC ads production, I'd say don't forget about the structure. So because any ad, it's still an ad, right? So it should be about promoting the product and motivating a user to do something. Like it might be like clicking, installing, registering, filling out a form, passing a quiz, etc. So it should be a hook, a body, and CTA. Always don't forget about any of these elements because if you don't have a CTA, I mean, it's going to be a waste of budget, for example. Or if you don't have a hook, no one is going to watch your ads. Or if you don't have a body, if you don't have a clear showcase of the product, people just won't get what your product is about, right? So this is pretty essential.
It seems like a very powerful formula for ad creatives, and I also would like to ask you, stepping into this phase of already published creatives, we're starting to think about numbers and metrics. So I'm curious which KPIs or metrics are the most crucial in terms of ad creatives performance.
If you ask any team about, hey, how you're going to rate the results of the ads or how you're going to rate the metrics, it's going to be like ROAS, and it's always the main metric, right? Like how beneficial it's going to be profitable for us. But speaking of how we can rate and evaluate the test, I'd say it depends on stage, campaign optimization, market, the funnel that we've got, because hey, it might be a web funnel, it might be like classic app funnel, it might be like freemium, hard paywall, it might be about like opening a deposit account, it might be about like opening a real account, etc. So it's pretty various and might be absolutely different. But speaking of like our perspective, how we work with UGC and how we evaluate the results of the campaigns to make conclusions and make a decision what's going to be the next step, I'd say When we just start working with UGC, it's going to be about optimizing and reaching a good result for an alpha funnel. Because the very first thing that we do, we need to define a message. Like what is going to be relevant for the audience, right? What's going to be the pain points in the hook? What's going to be the USPs in the body? Like what's going to be the best way and the best message we should deliver? Then after this, the very first step, working on CTR and install rate, that these are like the alpha funnel metrics. We can start working to improve the rest of them, like going a little bit deeper, because we've got a great example. That was Ya Games, which is an online catalog, a web catalog of different casual games, and the main metric to define ROAS for them, that was retention rate, because the monetization was of the ad monetization. And they had two metrics, like 7-day retention and 14-day retention. We created the very first batch for them to work on CTR and target action on the website. And with the second batch, we started emphasizing the benefits related to motivate a user to spend more time playing games. It was about, hey, it has, like over 1,000 different games. If you're a match 3 fan, then you'll definitely find something that will catch you. Or, there are like games for all of your friends, etc. And we saw that as a result, we literally increased the 7-day and 14-day retention rate, because we just started delivering an adjusted message about like the thing that, hey, you definitely need to play more. You just need to spend more time on it because it's fun. Or another thing that was really interesting about how UGC ads might affect the deeper funnel was our case study with dating.com. So when we created a batch and tested these, we saw that CTR was dropped for about by 15 or 20%, which is a disaster, right? Hey, I mean, like CTR is so bad. And I was like, oh God, it's really bad. But after that, the purchase rate was increased by 90%. So that means that we found a message which is absolutely relevant to the audience, and if a person feel related, with like 90%, they're going to buy it, right? They're going to buy a subscription, they're going to buy the product, they're going to use it. That's it. But still, it's about finding a connection between the product and the funnel we've got with the first step, message, second step, talent, third step, scaling it to make it as cheap and as fast as possible.
Actually, when you started to talk about ROI and ROAS, these metrics, I felt the same, because in marketing we always have this limited and constrained budget. So these metrics connected to costs and returns on investments are usually crucial, but engagement in terms of mobile apps is also one of the most critical points and even pain points sometimes. But when we speak about these metrics, I'm also curious whether there are some benchmarks for specific types of UGC-like ads, or maybe for some verticals in which you are operating. So do you have some standards inside maybe of your company or for specific campaigns?
It's a great question. There are definitely some common benchmarks for a vertical, for example, but it's going to be different for a vertical or for a market, right? That's the first thing, which is absolutely well known for any marketing people. That's the first thing. The second thing, when we work in UGC, it's pretty hard to compete with vertical benchmarks, right? Because it's always kind of like an ideal one. And it might be absolutely different from the one that we've got for a current campaign, because we still have different market terms, we have different seasons, we have different campaign settings, etc. So there are too many factors that affect the results. So that's why we tend to work with an internal benchmark a team has. It's going to be about like, hey, our target CTR is 2.5, for example. This is our benchmark, and this is going to be the metric and the flag for us. So we create a batch, we test it, and we see, for example, the two ads had CTR of 2.7, which is absolutely great, and we need to develop them more, like to scale them to create more iterations. And the rest of them showed a CTR of 2.1, for example, or 2.2, which isn't so good, right? Means that perhaps there is something that we could work on, but we need to decide if we're gonna like give another iteration, another chance to it, or just focus on the winning concepts, which is absolutely the best option. That's it. So in short, we tend to work with internal benchmarks our partners have.
When you were speaking about these benchmarks and metrics, you mentioned the case with dating.com. And I'm also interested in maybe some other case studies with successful results of your specific campaigns, or maybe on the contrary, some campaigns which didn't perform as they expected to perform. So could you please share some insights in terms of results and case studies of UGC Ninja?
Yeah, definitely. Some of them I'm allowed to share publicly. Some of them can't, so I'm going to say all the names.
Yeah.
But speaking of like good cases, we had a good example was a case study we had with Doodle God, which was a mobile game. So we created a batch of token heads, like let's play for them, and we had a winner. And you're not going to believe, like, we tried to recreate such a winner for about like 2 or 3 times, but we haven't had any close results to it ever since. And the team was using this asset in its different variations with the same talent, with the same gameplay for over a year. And not only like on Meta or TikTok, but also Twitter. Moreover, it worked well for different funnels, not only the mobile funnel, but also like for the Steam funnel as well, which was absolutely surprising. Another good case study we had with Hubex this year. So they have the app, an AI photo generator, and we've become a top 1% at the utilities and software category in the US. With the ads we created for them. But speaking of like the whole funnel, it could be like a little bit surprising for some guys from the industry, but it worked pretty well for Habits. That's why they scaled the budget. And the video itself was converting and engaging. We, of course, had fails as well. Everyone has, right? So sometimes I remember the good example for one of our partners. We created a batch of ads. They tested it and it failed in terms of like their internal benchmarks. And that was about, okay, so we haven't found a winner this time. But 6 months later, they decided to retest the same assets with no changes. And it got like the results pretty close to their benchmarks. So just like 6 months later, with no changes in the ads, that was about like the market terms and the market conditions. So sometimes it's not just about the ads, the content itself. Sometimes it's about the rest of the factors. And there is a hint I've got for some teams: don't like make it overcomplicated. I'd say if you're about to start with UGC, don't invest into something polished, pretty cool, skates, testimonials, vlogs, etc. Start with simple token heads, which are going to be fast, cheap, comparatively cheap, right? And still bringing a good result. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much for this recommendation. I think it would be very valuable and worthy for our listeners and viewers. And I also want to proceed our conversation in the realm of influence marketing, because from my point of view, when I'm thinking about user-generated content and UGC-like ads, for some reason, this influencer marketing topic arises in my head because these talking heads are somehow connected to influence marketing. So these talking heads are always like associated with some bloggers or influencers, some maybe celebrities. Maybe it's just my point of view or myth, and I want to ask you whether this influence marketing takes place in UGC Ninja's work. So do you somehow incorporate it into your ad creatives development?
Yeah, I'm going to be absolutely honest. We do not do influence marketing at all because it's a totally different approach.
Mm-hmm.
It's still like looks like UGC, right? So we have a person filming himself or herself at home, probably, or somewhere else. So it looks authentic. But in terms of marketing, it works differently, right? So here it's going to be about trying to get an influencer's audience and convert them, right? Because they follow this person and they tend to trust him or her, and they are gonna like check this out because like their celebrity recommended it. But for us, it's about working with absolutely real people. We work worldwide, from US to Japan, and what we do, we film and work with nano and micro influencers, I'd say, right? So they know how to film content, they know how the social networks content works, but for us, it's going to be about like having an authentic portrait that our audience can relate to. It's going to be about, hey, don't know, I'm a 30 years old housewife from Michigan. Or it's going to be about, hey, I'm Matthew, I'm a sports guy, and here is like my fitness app that helps my AI coach, for example, etc. Or it's going to be about, don't know, I'm a mother of 2 kids, and I've got a sleep tracker that helped me to build my sleep routine, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a real person that you can find on the list of your friends. On Instagram, for example, or TikTok, or Facebook, etc., and bringing this authentic touch to the product promotion. And here, what we work on content which is cheaper than in any influence marketing type of content, right? Because the collaboration is going to be like quite expensive and scalable. Because if we define a good message, right, and we understand that, hey, this message is going to work for for housewives and with the housewife, then we can film 20, 30, 40 of that, right? Mm-hmm. Bringing the same thing with like slightly different adjustments of the script, etc. So it's scalable, it's cheaper, it's faster, and it's easy to track.
Mm-hmm. You know what's going on in my mind right now? I'm thinking about what was the genius who created this UGC-like ads, because it's such a great like niche market and phenomena that combines this authenticity, trustworthiness, and like slower costs for creation and maybe even for promotion. So this is like a genius creation. And also I would like to ask, how do you balance this authenticity and trustworthiness, organic content, of a speaking head or just some micro or nano influencer, and the product showcasing and selling? So how do you find this golden mean between promoting and just being native?
Yeah, actually, it's a matter of experience, data, and research, because it is still different for different verticals. So, for example, like I'd say for health and wellness, which is one of the top verticals for UGC, right, of any type, they tend to trust more when it's more organic. when we show a person just doing exercises or telling the personal story, it's gonna work a little bit better than like a straightforward ad content. But for gaming, for example, right? For games, it's gonna be about, hey, pretty straightforward. Top three match three games to play in a plane, part three, and then like, hey, this is the one. Zero ads, no Wi-Fi connection, etc. Pretty straightforward, but still, the decisions, the creative decisions that we make, they are based on first like creative research, our personal knowledge base. We call it Ninja Wiki. And of course, if there is any there are any backlogs from the partner side about the previous test, what worked better, what worked worse for them, etc. That's it.
I got it. It seems like a very nice recommendation also for our viewers and listeners to operate with this UGC-like ads. And I think that for some of the marketers and agencies, this balance could be a challenge and a difficulty. And I also would like to ask whether you face some other types of difficulties and challenges while creating these UGC-like ads, publishing them, working with these talents. Maybe you have some legal or ethical challenges. Could you please share some of the examples?
Yeah, of course. There are many, especially when you work with such verticals as fintech, for example. It's going to be about a huge long process with compliance. For example, right, about, hey, we need to make sure that every word in our script is going to be aligned with the rules and laws, etc. But I recall a couple of funny stories we had. The first story was when we created a batch of ads for Arabic speaking market with American talent, and the ad became a winner. That was an absolute top performer. And of course, it got scaled in terms of budget. It had become really popular, and talent we filmed in this video, she came to us and she was like, hey guys, could you please like stop showing this ad with me, please, because like I'm living in a traditional country and I got bullied by my friends and colleagues, so please stop it. And I was like, yeah, of course, we solved the case. We helped her because it's still about like she's our talent. How couldn't we ignore her? Another one, when we were working and creating ads for the Chinese market, we literally requested a written notice from the talents about that they are not connected to the political opposition parties in China. So that way, our partner provided the Chinese regulators with such a notice to get allowed to run these ads. And that was quite funny. I mean, still like a little bit of cultural difference. Yep, that's it. And speaking of like UGC itself, I'd say one of the main obstacles is about network of talents. And actually, if you have a talk with different companies that have in-house teams, it's going to be the most often challenge that they have about like, hey, we've got scenarios, scripts, ideas, hypotheses, but we don't have talents to film with.
And proceeding this particular topic, I've watched the video course that you've recorded for Apptica Academy, and here you said that you can replace these real talents with AI-generated talents. So we are stepping in this realm of artificial intelligence, and I think I must ask you about this. So how do you incorporate this buzz artificial intelligence into your daily work operations, into maybe scripts creation, metrics assessment? How do you use AI?
Yeah, so for us, AI is absolutely great. It helped us to ease and simplify the process a lot. from like custom GPT models that we use to generate hooks, like a variety of them, not just about like two, three, or five. It's about like generating, 20, 30, 40 different variations. Our creative producer can use as a base, right? To tune them, to adjust them, and to take. The thing that I personally love about these models that we've got, that they are educated on real content, on real ads, and on real scripts that we were making. That's a great thing. Another one would be that this year we developed our own AI avatars. Made with real people. So, for example, you might have heard of such services as Arcades.ai, for example, or TikTok Symphony, etc. What we did, we created our own avatars, unique ones. I mean, if you use Arcades, there is 100% that any avatar you're going to take from there, it's going to be used for like 5, 10, 15 more different products and companies, right? But what we did, we created custom avatars with our talents. So we literally digitalized them to use their appearance and voice in the videos. And another thing that really changed the market is AI dubbing. I mean, like previously, that was about, hey, we've got an ad which works well for us, but it's in English, and we need to create one for like Spanish-speaking market. It's going to be about like refilming it or like revoicing, finding a Spanish talent, being able a voice actor, or like refilming it in Spanish. But now it's going to take you about like 40, 60 seconds to localize it, and this is absolutely great for scaling.
What is the difference in terms of engagement metrics comparing real talents and maybe AI created ones? So in my point of view, these AI created talents, let's call them like this, they could act not so native, so maybe they are not so engaging for the audience, or maybe you could prove me wrong.
It actually depends on what platform you're going to use for creating an avatar, because it's a common thing that we are still able to recognize that, hey, this is not a living person, right? So it's an avatar. But there are some verticals, for example, that are a perfect fit for that. If we've got, an AI tracker or an AI generator of something, etc., why not to create this? Or we have there are lots of apps about like having this kind of AI friend, right? And using an AI avatar for it is absolutely perfect because, hey, I mean, we've got a product about AI avatars and we're getting an AI avatar promoting it. An absolute match. But from my experience, I've seen ads where you will never say that it's an AI avatar, because the model is quite good itself, the voice is great, and also editing is quite good. I mean, when we have lots of cuts, it's pretty hard to say that this is not a living person. And speaking of metrics and the results, I'd say that I know a couple of teams that are reaching really good results and who replaced all the production with avatars, and it still works for them. I can't say there is a direct correlation that if we're going to use AI avatars, it's going to be it's going to decrease CTR, for example, or it's going to like decrease the install rate. It's still a matter of test, and it could become a different flow for you. So you've got like UGC banners, motion videos, and plus AI avatars.
As I see, AI opens, and I think it will open even more different possibilities in terms of UGC like ads creation and maybe even metrics assessment, publishing. But are there any other trends evolving in the industry of UGC like ads?
Yeah, for sure. I was speaking about the latest tendencies that we could see. It's about that. Across platforms, we find more and more longer videos showing good results. So it could be about like 50, 60 even 90 seconds instead of just like 15 or 20. And actually, I see it's as a return of the old trend for longer formats. We could see
Mm.
about like 2 years ago that was pretty popular on Facebook. There is a great expert trend when we see lots of ads about, hey guys, I'm a psychologist, or you know, I'm a doctor, I'm a firefighter with like 5, 7, 10 years of experience, and as such a person, I'm going to tell you about these products, etc. So this is great when we pretend to be experts from the industry and tell about something. Yeah, avatars is still a trend, right? So we can see more and more of them across platforms, across verticals, and it's gonna become even more popular next year with TikTok Symphony, which is absolutely great. I really love it because I mean there is a thing that is gonna blow the mind of all the e-com companies, because imagine that you have an AI avatar that you can combine with any clothing you have. Literally have a model, you upload a photo of like a t-shirt of a pair of jeans, and then it like the model is wearing it and is able to turn sideways, to turn around, showing how it looks like, and which is amazing. If we have like a clothing brand, wow, that's gonna help us to scale and create, don't know, like hundreds of videos.
Yeah, that's actually mind blowing because we are stepping into this virtual reality, and it seems to me very promising in terms of advertising, in terms of this usage of virtual reality in promotion. So I think the future of UGC like ads is very dynamic and promising. Finalizing our conversation, I'd like to ask you to give a piece of advice to marketers or other professionals who are looking to work with UGC like ads. So what recommendations could you give to them?
Stick to iterations, stick to A/B testing, because like the worst thing that you can do is testing a hypothesis or an idea you have with just 1 or 2 videos. No, don't do that. Make sure that you test at scale. Then remember about the ad structure that you need to keep. It's like a general recommendation. It might be different, but for the beginning, it's great. Then, of course, I'd say you need to remember that UGC is a different type of content, and the funnel is going to be a little bit different. So it's not fair, and it's not really good to compare it with like gameplay ads, for example, or banners. It's different, and it's going to work different in the metrics. So test it at scale. Remember about A/B testing. Remember about the ad structure. Remember about keeping it relevant not only for the audience but also for the product, because misleads are good, but not always. Let's be honest. Yep, and remember that UGC might be rewarding. It could be an absolute success for your funnels.
Great. Thank you so much for such worthy and valuable insights and recommendations. And thank you for today's conversation. I'm very grateful that you've come to our podcast today. It was just wonderful. The insights, very interesting case studies, examples. It was just amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting.
I'm addressing our viewers and listeners. Check UGC Ninja website not to miss new updates and more insightful information, and also follow Apptica's social media and channels to stay ahead of the curve. Thank you so much for watching us today. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ross, for being with us here. It was my pleasure.
Thank you very much. The pleasure was mine. So follow us on LinkedIn, or drop me a message on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.